Welcome back to Selling Circular, the podcast where we rethink capitalism through the intersection of commerce and circular business model innovation. Today, we're bringing you a solution that will potentially solve that pile of Amazon boxes sitting in the corner of your home. I'm Gar Punnett, CEO of LoopLayer.
I'm Sabira Lakhani, VP of Product at Reebly. If this is your first time joining us, we're so glad you're here and you're part of this growing community dedicated to advancing the circular economy.
Remember, the best way to support us, truthfully, please, share it. Share this podcast with your network and subscribe so you never miss an episode. We really want to amplify this message, grow this movement, and really change the linear economy so that we can see lasting circular economic business model success.
And if you're new to circular economy, I'm going to ad lib a little bit here. Circular economy is about eliminating waste, designing out waste from new products, and regenerating nature. And we cover all of that in our podcast. So as we said, in this episode, we're going to tackle the issue of packaging waste. So in the first principle of circular economy, we want to eliminate waste. And you and I get a lot of packages at home and in our offices, and e-commerce giants like Amazon and other service providers and vendors that we purchase from, they get to send packages directly to our homes and our businesses. And I know I have a lot of boxes and packaging material piled up in my house. I'm not really sure what to do with them.
Yeah, I keep piling them up. They just keep sitting around.
And we're not alone. Over 82 million tons of packaging waste is generated annually. And you can think of what that is, right? It's like the corrugated boxes, cardboard boxes. It's like plastic with like the nice poppable bubbles. Those are really great. Now there's like the new paper versions that still have some plastic lining in them. There's like a total mix. And there is recyclability of paper and cardboard is pretty high, but a lot of times there's contamination and also people don't put things in the right place. So that means that materials don't make it back to the recycling stream. And there's also, I think, like a fair amount of distrust in recycling today, especially plastic recycling. And, we know that less than 15% of material is recycled globally. And that means that everything else is really ending up in landfill. So we definitely need an alternative, and reusing would be great.
So this is where our guest comes in today. Aleksandra Plewa, co-founder of EcoShip, a Chicago-based nonprofit that's dedicated to recovering shipping materials and redistributing that back to small businesses. With EcoShip, this is what we both really tracked with. It was a local, impactful, essentially solution created just to help support local entrepreneurs by offering free to low-cost shipping supplies, by reusing the supplies that Aleksandra was essentially finding around her house, around her friend groups, around her neighborhood, and really just saw a problem and decided to fix it. So while it's not built necessarily to scale out in terms of its impact in its own community, it's a very isolated solution that more and more people want to contribute to. It may not be able to jump to another community, but that's really the fun part, is it means that someone else might be able to do this exact type of solution, and you might be able to provide this concept in your community to really grow and drive that community initiative and make that tangible impact. So what you'll learn from this is that that's exactly what Aleksandra did, and that's how you actually can potentially get in touch with EcoShip to potentially transform the way that your community views packaging waste and turn that into an opportunity for sustainability and local economic support. So look at Aleksandra go. You'll be able to see Sapphira and I's excitement, or hear our excitement as we really dive into the solution and how impactful it was just from the community that we live in. Enjoy. We can warm this up with some easy ones, which is how did you think about starting this? Like, let's get into the origin story. Explain it to those that are outside of Chicago that may not have heard of you all. And for those that think this is a great idea, maybe I can do something like this. And so pitch it to us on there on how'd you come up with this? Why'd you come up with it? All of that.
Yeah, so honestly, EcoShip would not exist without my partner. He is an eBay reseller, so he sells a lot of clothing and electronics and interesting things like that. And so when I first met him, he was actually already reusing packaging to ship out his items. And so he was collecting that packaging from friends and family, but obviously he was not getting enough of it. And so I actually reached out on the Chicago Facebook groups, local like Buy Nothing groups, and started to ask folks if they have just excess packaging lying around.
Mm.
And this was like way before I knew anything about packaging and what was happening. You know, you just get an Amazon delivery and just toss it. Like you wouldn't even think twice about it. That's kind of where I was at. You know, whatever could be recycled, great, tossed it in the recycling bin. But everything
Mhm.
else, it kind of just sits around and you're looking at it and you're like, I think this might be a problem, but I don't really know what to do with it.
What I love about that
So
already, real quick, is the acute problem that your partner was having, that you were like, maybe I can solve this, and then that aha moment, which I think is coming.
yeah.
And it's like that is so common in circular economy to have this sort of these series of events where someone maybe in entrepreneurship's like, I see a problem, I can do something about that. Oh, and I didn't even know that this world existed and how possible this was.
Exactly. Yeah, I definitely was not thinking about the environmental world, the sustainability world. At that point, it was just getting these materials to my partner's business. But
Now,
yeah.
I also had like a concept in there too where I used to use this term a lot where it was the multi-usiverse. And like once you saw
hmm
it for the first time, now you can't unsee it. And so talk about that shift in perspective too a little bit and as you were diving in.
Yeah, so honestly, that completely changed when my closet filled up with all these packaging materials from other people dropping off at my location. So during like 2 or 3 months, I had a bin outside of my apartment where people can come and drop off their stuff. And I was also driving around to pick up these materials. So I was like driving all around Chicago, got to see a lot of cool neighborhoods and businesses. But literally people would just leave their stuff and I was like a little like garbage pickup thing. And seriously, just one day I like opened my closet and like all these mailers were in there and I'm like, okay, I think this is a problem.
I've caused
Um,
my own problem now. Yes.
Yeah, so at that point, I really did start to dig in a little bit. So I started to, actually see like how many packages Amazon shipped out every day, which is 1.6 million. It's a ridiculous amount. And then I started to look into what was being done about it, since a lot of the packaging is a plastic called LDPE, and that can't be put into your blue bin, which a lot of people don't know about. We meet a lot of those people at our events and have to explain that to them because they get excited. They're like, "Oh, yeah, yeah, I recycle this one." I'm like, "You can't, you can't." And yeah, that kind of just went down like a deep rabbit hole with all of that research and quickly figured out that there really is not a good solution for it. And then we just started to look into numbers. And so, I started to ask my partner, hey, how much do you actually save in packaging by reusing it instead of buying brand new? And that's when I realized how expensive bubble wrap and packing peanuts are and boxes. I mean, it's just like mind-boggling. And so for a small business to be able to save $50 to $60 like every week or so, that's actually a lot of money. And that's when we started to go on different Facebook groups. We started to go on Poshmark, local like Etsy, and started to find these small business owners that could potentially use these materials.
That's
The probably
amazing.
the insidious part of that is as you even scale as a small business owner, the more you're then paying, and then the less you're reusing, and the more you're wasting. So it just continues to compound. Yeah. Go ahead, Samira. Sorry.
Yeah.
Uh, I'm curious, at what point did it become like a real thing where you were like, okay, we're gonna start an organization to help make this more of a reality, more formalized? When did that happen?
Yeah, so it actually happened pretty quickly. After I initially started to collect these materials from people around Chicago, Honestly, after we found, I think, our first 5 or 6 businesses, at that point we were like, okay, this could be something special. Especially because we were getting so much interest on these Facebook groups of people wanting to have a place to drop off these materials as well. And so at that point, we just started to kind of bounce between being a nonprofit and a for-profit. I think that's one of like the main questions that we do get asked is why did we choose to become a nonprofit versus a for-profit business? And my whole mentality going into it was how do we help small business owners? It really wasn't about the sustainability aspect of it. That kind of came later on as we became introduced to that world. Honestly, we had folks from the environmental industry like reaching out to us asking if we can join them. And at that point we were like, oh, okay. So we're playing both sides here. But my
As you
yeah,
should.
like I said, yeah.
That's
Yeah.
the best way to do it. Yeah.
Yeah. And this was during the pandemic too.
Mm.
So a lot of people were getting laid off. They were getting fired. And so they had no other choice but to kind of start their own little business. And so people were making jewelry, they were making pottery, just to help pay bills. And so for us to be able to help those business owners who were just trying to make it out there, trying to get their rent paid, trying to support their families. I think that became really important from the very beginning. And so that's something that we kind of held on to was this is always about the small businesses in Chicago.
This is like ecosystem in action, right? Is in the normal flow of materials that what would have been waste would go into a waste management kind of stream, and either whatever could be recycled might be recycled, and whatever can't be recycled might be incinerated or just tossed in the landfill. And here you're intervening to redistribute materials locally, and that is such a, like a functional, I guess, like infrastructure play, right? You have logistics
Yeah.
and storage and redistribution, kind of like collection, keeping, and redistribution. So I guess like all of that to me sounds like a functionally operating business. And so how do you but differentiate from the traditional recycler? And why do you think your customers provide materials to you instead of the recycler? Like, why were they excited
Yeah.
to drop things off?
I'm sure you both are very familiar with the statistics, the recycling statistics in Chicago, and we have some of the lowest recycling rates. I think right now I think under 13% of plastics actually gets recycled, which is very sad. And a lot more individuals became aware of that during the pandemic. And so knowing that statistic, it is really hard to continue recycling when you're every single time you're throwing, a water bottle in there or a piece of cardboard, you're wondering, is this even going to get recycled? And so I think people just got excited that there was another option instead. And here's the thing, EcoShip is not a long-term solution by any means. It might get reused a few times, but at the end of the day, it's still going to end up in the trash or recycling. And so more than anything, I think our biggest goal right now over the next like 2 years is to really just bring awareness to what the problem is and why we're doing what we're doing. Um, but people are just excited when they find something new and something different. It is really exciting. And so that's why I think that's why people choose to kind of go out of their way and drop off these materials for us instead. We're not as much as I would want to be easily accessible to every single person, we're not there just yet. We are partnered with 11 businesses in different neighborhoods and nearby suburbs, but it's still not enough. And, we try and do events every single month in different areas as well to make it a little bit easier for people to drop off. But like I said, it's going to take some time. And so we just like, I think it really opened our eyes that what we're doing is actually meaningful when people like go out of their way. They'll drive, however many however many minutes, however many miles to get to us.
Well, and I think that's because it's solving fundamentally like a recycling anxiety.
Yeah.
And I was reading at some point, it's like, and I probably suffer from this too, where and you were to that certain, you were doing it more purposefully, but hoarding
Yeah.
these goods where you're like, oh, I know this isn't going to be recycled. So I might as well just put it in this corner I have because this corner, I'm not using this corner. Now this corner becomes plastic corner. And so ultimately you guys had a use for it because your partner was shipping things. But it does. I bet it solves that for a lot of people where they're like, oh, I just can't. For those that maybe do know that our Chicago systems don't process LDPE, that they can actually go, I know someplace I can put this and feel like I'm a part of
Yeah.
this system.
It's actually quite funny how many of those individuals we get at these events where they'll bring in loads of items and just say, this has been sitting in my house for 2 years because I was just hoping
Thank
that
you.
there would be a solution for it.
Wow.
So anyone who holds on to materials for that long, I applaud them and, obviously very grateful for it. But we get so many of those stories that at this point, it's kind of like the norm. It doesn't even faze us anymore. It's like, oh, only 2 years? We've had someone who held on to them for 5 years. So it's like a competition now.
That's amazing. So you were starting to say that you're helping small businesses. Do you charge them for the material at all? Do you give it away for free? What's the model?
Yeah, so we give all the materials away for free, and we kind of operate on a pay what you can model. So obviously, if you're just starting, you don't have those excess funds to really pay for these materials. And so it's completely your call on what you're able to give or not give at the moment. We've had so many businesses start off, people were working in their homes. They turned their studio apartments into their workspaces, and now they are just thriving. They have wholesale orders going out every other week. They have a full studio. These are like our favorite stories, is kind of seeing that transition happen and in a very short amount of time too. And so, while in the beginning they really just could not afford to make a donation, now they can. And now they're able to make that donation, help spread the word of what they're doing. And yeah, and that's definitely our model, our business model. And we're not planning on changing that anytime soon.
To that end, in terms of how you all will evolve or are seeking to evolve,
Mm.
is Chicagoland the goal right now? And if it is or isn't if it isn't in your vision to expand to other cities, what could you say to those that might be in other cities where they're like, oh, I thought about this at one point, I didn't know it was possible, or what advice do you have if that is the case?
Yeah, so over the last year, we implemented these little collection campaigns. So one of them is during the holidays, and then the other one is during Earth Month. And during those times, we're actually able to kind of reach outside of the city limits into suburbs. And so we've been in Downers Grove, we've been in Park Ridge, Evanston, and whatnot. And so we hope to really keep pushing out of those. Even if we're personally not able to kind of manage those drop-off sites and, like do the pickups like we normally do, we could potentially find a team of volunteers who would be willing to do it. And we've already found those groups. And so we know it's possible. It's really simple. As soon as you figure out that, hey, like these businesses could potentially reuse these materials, you just set up a little box, you put a little, QR code on there that leads to the list of accepted items and spread the word. Let your community know that, hey, you can drop off your bubble wrap here, you can drop off your mailers, and someone else will reuse it. Um, and answering your question about whether we're looking to expand into other cities, yes. Yes, definitely. And we've already got an interest. So we've been on calls with folks who already run like a green initiative group in their city, and they're always trying out various pilot programs to see which ones catch on, which ones work, which ones are easy to maintain. And so we're able to provide them that blueprint on how we got started and how they can potentially make it their own. So yeah, always entertaining calls, always entertaining these conversations because who knows, we might be seeing something similar in other states. Right now, honestly, we like tried to find another group that does what we do, but we couldn't find anything. So, I don't want to toot my own horn, but I think we are like the first of
Go.
its kind, or at least like in the model that we chose
Yes.
to run.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
So what I heard in there was a little bit of a call to action that people could reach
Yeah.
out if they are really interested, passionate about this. Reach out on the website, email you all, and then that's actually something that they might be able to put into action.
Yeah.
Maybe given y'all's framework or how you all built this out.
Yeah, 100%. I mean, you have resellers in every single state. The reselling community is massive beyond our imagination. I mean, I didn't even know anything about the reselling community. I had no idea it was a thing. Obviously, I knew about thrift stores and Goodwill, but I didn't realize how large e-commerce has gotten until my partner. And I'm telling you, they are everywhere and they're more than happy to take packaging materials off your hands. I see these stories all the time where they'll literally head on over and garbage surf for boxes and bubble wrap because people will just throw it out. So yeah, it's definitely
Free
in need.
free commodities. That's just it's
Yes.
that simple. No, the only reason I know it's in it the content of resale also is very popular online. And
Yeah.
the reason I know that, Sabira, is anything in our videos that has resale in the title or gets picked up by algorithms so fast. And so it's even fascinating where we might, even this video will be able to hit them because it speaks to their community and their community is so involved, to your point,
Right.
Yeah,
Alexandra.
that's
Like
super.
they,
Yeah.
they love this type of action to be taken on free materials for their business. So I love that this is kind of tangential to resale.
Yeah.
Well,
Yeah.
yeah, and I was also wondering because you were saying that people are open, like you're open to having kind of like coaching calls almost. Does your website have like a, just like here's the few steps to get started? Do you have something published that folks could reach or just like read and take action? Because I'm thinking like, what are the places that people go consistently that they might feel comfortable dropping something off? Like I go to a mosque on a regular basis and I'm thinking, why can't I just put a box there
Yeah.
and like help 500 people? Just like they come every Friday, like whatever you got this week, just bring it on a Friday, right? Like that actually could make it really simple and easy, or a church or whatever, where people also feel like maybe that, okay, I'm not charging for this, and I feel like I can give it away for free. So yeah, I guess the question is, do you have a get started quick manual to share?
We do not. We don't have anything on our website. That is a great idea, though. That's something that we can very easily put together and make happen. And if need be, I can put one together on Canva real quick.
Yeah.
But
Well,
you're
I'm
right,
sure there's
yeah.
also, I'm sure there's
I
more
love it.
volunteers out there that would
Yeah.
also
Yeah.
be happy to help do that. So
Yeah.
I
I'm
mean,
also
that's
thinking
awesome.
like the Girl Scouts, the Boy Scouts, like if they
Yeah.
can sell cookies, they can collect
Oh,
packaging. They
we
go door to
Yes.
door.
the Girl Scouts actually set a record of how quickly they sorted materials. And so every time we have a volunteer group, we tell them that the Girl Scouts are the ones to beat. So yes, trust me, the Girl Scouts can get to work.
I was a
Um,
Girl Scout. I feel really good
there was
about
a
it.
group in one of the suburbs. They
No,
collected materials and they did a phenomenal job. So I'm telling you, they can really get stuff done.
Yeah.
there's a young Sabira out there somewhere who just think about you if you had been at that age introduced to sorting plastics. Like,
Wow.
yes,
I would
wow.
be way
Just
deeper in this economy.
exactly. Yeah.
That's
That's
another
amazing.
actually great topic that we love to bring up is how much of a difference children make on their parents. They are
Mm.
so influential, and we've had parents stop by our sorting events, and they're like, "Yeah, I'm here because of my kid." They're like, "My kid
Meaning
made
like the
me."
kids want it. Like they're saying we want to do the right thing with the packaging,
Yes.
or
Yeah.
is this
Not
something
even with
else?
the packaging, but just the right thing with recycling and cutting
I
back on
Mm.
trash. I mean, we had a parent come in saying that they'd never had a recycling bin, and then their kid told them to get one. So,
You know what I love
So
about that
bad.
is it speaks to the simplicity
Yeah.
of these models and the obvious nature of waste that kids really pick up on. And on the flip side of those, then those same kids, they are shamelessly then parroting that language all the time of like, why don't we have this? We should do this. I learned this. And some of us might get embarrassed about the continual repetition of our messages.
Yeah.
Kids don't care. They're going to keep being like, I want this. This is recycling. It makes sense. Like, can we get this? So that's awesome that it's pushing parents in that direction.
Yeah, that's honestly when we first started to, imagine how EcoShip would be as a nonprofit. It was all about making things easy. And that's why we were so persistent on adding all these drop-off sites and just, making the list as easy as possible to understand, making the mission and the goal as easy as possible to understand. Even a child can do it. And so yeah, that's something that we continue to push for and strive for.
Do you have like a central storefront right now that you're operating, or is it still kind of like loose loose network or tight network of folks that are working with you to do all this? Like, because you mentioned kind of a wide geography that you're reaching. So how does that
Yeah.
work?
Yeah, and
So to,
actually, as you dive into that, talk a
Mhm.
little bit about those operations too. I mean, we want to get into
Yeah.
the nitty gritty of it. It's like, if I give you a mailer, how does that all work?
Yeah,
Mm,
definitely. So I'll start off with where our headquarters is. And it is a storage unit in Avondale. So, we to keep costs low and to just make it make sense, we decided to just get a storage unit at first. We got the smallest one and filled that up within months. So we expanded into a larger one, and now we have two of the biggest ones in that storage unit. And right now it's been working. So when, folks need materials, they go through our online marketplace, they schedule a time and day to pick up materials and then just come by. Obviously, the goal one day is to have our own space because at this point we definitely need it. And just to implement like a few more workshops to get small businesses the resources that they need. But we have had to turn down a few really good opportunities of, receiving like a ton of materials because we knew that we wouldn't be able to have the space for it. And it
mm,
was a little discouraging, but we're hoping to get there one day. We're currently looking for a space. That is definitely the goal. But I think the reason why we've been able to expand as much as we have is because of those drop-off sites that I was talking about. And so initially, we had several local businesses that reached out to us asking if they could be a drop-off site. And this was like before we
mm,
were even thinking of implementing these drop-off sites. But I think they knew that, not only would these bring in like foot traffic into their stores, it would help others realize that there's like more out there that is happening. And so it would bring
mm.
more awareness to also our nonprofit. And so, for example, one of the stores that we're partnered with is a refill store. It's the Unwaste Shop in West Loop. And so, if someone isn't familiar with a refill store, this is a great way to familiarize yourself with it. And so, basically, I'm sure you two know exactly what a refill store is, but to anyone who doesn't, you bring in your own containers and fill them up with shampoo, hand soap, or some of these refill stores even have food. And so you can get rice, beans, stuff like that. It's a really great concept. It obviously helps reduce the plastic packaging in your life. And so it just makes sense. Why not partner with stores that actually care about the environment as well? And so we are partnered with 11 stores like that around the city. And even if the store isn't about like the environment, let's say, they have a mission to kind of make sure that their waste gets to be reused and it just doesn't end up in their trash can and who knows what landfill at that point.
What I love about that model actually too, from like a decentralized network supply chain to you all, is how more than likely your supply might even be diminished in those satellite locations before it ends up back to you. Is that the case, that some of these businesses are actually like, this is just free material that's ending up at our point of sale, and we can either offer this back to our customers, or as a way to get traffic in our doors, or even use it ourselves? Is that sort of an incentive for them to even work with you all?
Yeah, definitely. So that's something that we do tell our businesses that they can do is, if something comes in and they can reuse it, please do. One of the locations is actually at the plant on the south side and back of the yards neighborhood. And that's something that they do because they have so many other businesses in their location that are able to use those materials. And people are also encouraged to stop by these collection sites and grab whatever they need. It's a great model. It really is. So it's been very helpful to like a lot of the resellers that, for example, like on the south side, that saves them like an hour and a half of driving to us versus just stopping by there and grabbing what they need. And so that one has been working very well. A few of the other sites, they honestly don't have a lot of resellers in their area, I guess, or other small businesses, or they don't really ship out themselves. They just do in-person sales. And so those bins tend to fill up very, very quickly, and they're very, very full when we show up. But it just depends on the location. And I think that's the best part of it. And after like working with them for so long now, we know exactly like what to expect from each one.
Oh, that's so cool. And how do you track then, like what's coming in? And are you trying to measure, like, here's the impact of EcoShip, or it
Yeah.
doesn't, or does it, like, yeah, how does that work?
Yeah, we do. We have a very weird way of tracking all those materials, and we track them by gallons because we have like the same garbage bags that we use to transport these materials. And so every bag is 39 gallons basically. And so
You need
that's our
some sort of
unit.
unit.
Yeah.
Yes, that works. Yeah.
Well, you can't really do weight.
Density
Bubble
and
wrap
weight.
is
Yeah.
yeah. Bubble wrap is very, very
Yeah.
light. A lot of those materials are actually very light. And so if we were to do it by weight, it just wouldn't make sense. It wouldn't be as impressive as our gallons. So for example, in 2023, just last year, we collected over 46,000 gallons of these materials. So it's a lot.
Well, what I love about that is like there might be somebody, a naysayer, they'll be like, well, that's not really that accurate. But then it's like,
Yeah.
well, actually, and here's the defense of that, which is the volume that it's occupying is its whole purpose. So it's either its whole purpose in its use to protect items, or its whole purpose in transporting it back for reuse. And
Yeah.
its volume sort of is the purpose of it. So it's again, that's how you can kind of defend that.
Right. No,
Um,
definitely.
You mentioned something that sparked an idea, and this is kind of just the part of the show that we like, of just ideating. The use of the storage units, I find, is a very interesting business model for the storage units, and that there could be more of a future of some sort of, and I know that there's a couple proposals out in the ethos, or not ethos, the sort of the environment that we're in, that have like reuse depot centers, where these spaces are actually, they're smaller spaces that are easily more affordable for smaller providers. But I just love this idea that somehow that reuse, or that storage center, could be almost a reuse depot, reuse bazaar, where all the doors come up and everyone's got their reusable whatever missions. And that is such an interesting model to be proven. Has anybody approached you about, if you thought about that, like what does that mean to you all in terms of getting more people to also be a part of that type of experience of going to a storage center like that?
Yeah, so we have actually met a few small business owners in those storage units, and so
Okay.
we're actually able to make that connection. Yeah, a lot of resellers, like my partner, they store their material items there, whatever they're selling, because they just don't have space in their apartment.
That makes
so
sense.
It just makes sense, right?
So
And
there's
so we're
already
able,
sort of an
yes.
economy in that way.
Yeah, 100%. Personally, I don't think that'll ever happen with the storage units. That's not really their goal and whatnot. And
Yeah, totally.
they are asking people not to sell stuff out of out of their storage units. So it's
Oh,
basically just for storage. That's it. And
well,
I
that's
think they
strange.
want to keep it at that. But I do agree with you about kind of like centralizing everything. And so making these businesses and nonprofits like accessible to individuals in just one area so you don't have to go to 15 different stops. And so that is something that is being worked on, and hopefully we will see or hear about it in a few months. But we are looking forward to
I
that.
I think I know what you're referencing, and yes, I was curious. Okay, this is good. And we'll have to fill in
Yeah.
Sabira on this on the other side, and everybody else when it
Yes.
happens. But
When it
we
happens,
can't talk
yeah.
about it yet. Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah, but that was another big thing for us. And so when we do have these collection campaigns, we do reach out to other small businesses, nonprofits, and we ask them if there's something else that we can collect for them or pick up for them since we're already doing this. We've partnered with other nonprofits to help out as well with their campaigns. Whenever we have like our events, we'll offer to collect like a different item that's not even on our list for that other nonprofit because it just makes sense. So like, why are we going to have one individual try and make 5 different stops in Chicago traffic? And so that's why we are very excited about, potentially this project and what it could be. It's going to be amazing if it does happen.
I like
I
it. We
love
keep dropping hints. We
the
can keep,
mysteriousness. I
exactly.
love it.
But
But
there might
I,
be
you
some
know,
grants in the work that need to be approved first. That's
Yeah,
what. Yes,
okay.
exactly. Yeah.
just a
Okay.
little a
Well,
little
it was something
something.
I was thinking about, which is like, I'm like, I would want to start a reuse depot. I'm like in this middle of central New Jersey. I haven't really heard of something like that being around. And, one thought I had was, you know, should I just like go to the mayor and say, like, subsidize my space because I would be doing you a favor by decreasing your landfill costs over time, right? Like something like that, right? There's some public service that y'all are providing
Yeah.
by preventing all of this stuff going from landfill. So have you had any like relationship with the local government and they are benefiting from this? So like how has that your existence, has it played out with public officials in any way?
Unfortunately, no. It's been very discouraging. We've tried connecting with them, but it hasn't gone anywhere. There doesn't seem to be
Interesting.
any interest, and I don't know if it's because we don't have a physical location that they can
Hmm.
kind of sweep into their little territory. I think that might play a huge part in that. Chicago loves its wards. We're very protective of them. And so since we don't really associate with one or the other, and that might play a role in that. Yeah,
Yeah.
I have a
It's
lot to say about that, but I just don't think this is the
yeah.
right time for
Yeah.
it.
Yeah.
But
Exactly. And
I will make it known that no, we have not had that contact.
it
Yeah.
No, for those that then to fill in that gap of for what maybe others don't know about Chicago, is operates no different than any other city. Our wards are essentially governed by city council members, also known as aldermen, but they have particularly interesting aldermanic abilities and strengths that they can govern their territories quite efficiently if they want to,
Yeah.
and really give. I'm also using coded language here. Not preferential treatment, but advantageous treatment to those that are most supportive. Which, again, this is where, Aleksandra, to your point, yes, being rooted in a particular location could help one's cause of saying, hey, we should be associated with a particular chamber of commerce or a particular action here, and we need more of this from you all. And that can get a little complicated, I imagine, when you're serving
Yeah.
more than one, and trying to remain more decentralized. And but there's more political action there that I'm sure we can help And you all have been
Yeah.
connected to before some great actors. We have a good institute here, the Delta Institute, which I think you all were a beneficiary
Yes.
of. Could you talk a little bit more about what then in the absence maybe of political support, how do you all get supported? Obviously through volunteers, but there's a tends to be a bigger apparatus at play when politics aren't involved and more businesses, more nonprofits get involved when supporting each other. Can you talk a little bit about that infrastructure and how that's been impactful
Yes.
for you all?
100%. That's something that we are so grateful for. Like you said, since we have not received that political support, it's been absolutely incredible on the other side of it, how these small businesses, how these local community members have supported us instead. Um, Delta Institute was our first grant. They awarded us the Boost grant, and that really did help motivate us and kind of keep us going. And so, huge thanks to them and to the individuals that were able to connect us to that.
Could you
And
talk about
we've,
how much you got and you received and how
yeah,
probably exponential that money was to the order of operations you all were able to provide?
yeah. So because we keep our costs so low, this grant was just what we needed. It was $5,000, which doesn't seem like a whole ton, but
That's
when you operate out of, at that point we were just in one storage unit, which was like around 170 a month. That's tremendous. And so that's when we were able to expand into a second storage unit and just knowing exactly where that money is going to. That was the other thing, was just showing people exactly where every single dollar is going into. And so we actually have that report posted on our website for people to see where every single dollar went. And so, yeah, that's, another huge thing for us is just letting folks know, hey, like, this money isn't just sitting around not being used. Like, it's being used. It's being used to expand us into different neighborhoods, to help out with that, to help with the growth there. Um,
Can we
yeah,
can we talk about some growth then? Is that some of
yeah.
that money went to you all renting a van,
Hmm.
because you all don't operate, if I'm understanding this correctly, with an owned vehicle. Um,
Correct.
is an owned vehicle, is that something you all aspire to? Is this something
Yeah.
that we can put out into the universe here? So that's kind of a next step to be able to really facilitate pickup.
Yeah, 100%. Right now we are renting from U-Haul. And so, it is a bit of a financial burden, but at the same time, we've had so many community members come together and like financially support these drop-off sites. And so that's how we've been able to continue these pickups is through those either like donation matching campaigns or just like little contributions here and there. But I was actually using our personal vehicle for the longest time to do these pickups. And literally the wheel just fell off. And so very poetic in a way.
Yeah, you may be not dealing with a whole lot of weight, but you're dealing with a lot of trips. So yeah.
Yes. So at that point, we did have a campaign to raise enough funds for our own van. And we just were unsuccessful in reaching that goal. And so instead, we told folks that we were just going to continue renting until we either reach that goal or get a van donation. And so that is still very much in the works. Especially if we were to get our own space, it would just be so much more helpful than having to figure that whole rental situation out. It kind of is a pain, to be honest. Um, but it's doable right now. It's what we can do. So, but yes, our own
Okay.
vehicle is definitely in the
Another call to
future. I see
action.
it.
Another call to action.
Please
Yes.
donate to EcoShip. But I do think, you saying that it sparked a little bit of like anger in me because somebody
Let's hear
somebody
it.
is
I like it.
avoiding like somebody is avoiding the cost of the tipping fee, right? Like there is bet somebody would have, if they were throwing it out, paid the tipping fee to throw what was garbage and now reusable something out into the landfill. And so you call it what, I don't know, it's like $80 a tip, $100 a tip, and you're getting, I don't know what the numbers are actually now, and you're getting like a huge
That's about right.
vehicle dumped. But and there's a problem in that inherently too, which is the cost of that should be higher. We'll call that a separate problem, but somebody's avoiding the cost of this material going to landfill. And so like that, where does that money just shouldn't really evaporate. It should come to folks like you that are the cost of providing the service is still there, right? You are mimicking that waste management operations, but the end result is different and better,
Yeah.
at
So
a
I
higher
think
value.
I think that is actually the problem as to why we're not getting that support from those companies and these certain individuals is because we kind of are taking away from the materials that they would have gotten. And so, if we're, for example, grabbing cardboard from a small business, they don't have to pay for recycling as often. And so
Yeah.
those companies are losing out on that money. And so I can completely understand why they would not be the first ones running to support what we're doing.
And that's what's tough is you are inherently showing where their business model fails.
Yeah.
And it's like that's hard to support it's not hard to support. They should support it. But for the corporate mindset, for the corporate speak of it, that's a tough action to get them to follow.
Yeah. Yeah, that's something that we've come to accept. And we're okay with it because, like I said, we've had so much support on the other side of it and from other businesses and companies that actually do love this and want to support it. Something that we've actually been doing for the last year are corporate volunteer opportunities, and then also corporate collection events. And so a lot of these buildings that you see downtown, they're already on a mission to, kind of get that green star of approval and be more sustainable. And they want to show these numbers at the end of the year, to show people that they're making different changes. And so we've been able to provide yet another program for them to be a part of. And so they can get all their staff on board. They can get other offices on board as well with these collection programs. These volunteer opportunities are a great way for them to give back to us as well, through, volunteer hour matching and whatnot. And that's when their employees get to learn about our mission too. So it's,
I
beneficial
love
in
that. Yeah.
both ways.
I'm also wondering, sorry, as you were talking, I'm like, in our residential community, we actually have an Amazon package locker, right? Situation.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm wondering, are y'all trying to also approach residential communities and just say like, oh, there's actually like 200 apartments here. They're all opening their packages at home, or they're going to the Amazon locker and getting stuff. Like I could imagine just walking to the community house or whatever it is, dropping the packaging there. And then you can get more packaging at scale. Is that something also that you all are thinking
Yeah,
about?
that's something that we've also tried doing, and we just always get that same question from those apartment and condo complexes. Why would they pay for yet another service if they're already paying for trash and recycling? And so they're not really understanding exactly what it is that's happening with EcoShip. And so honestly, what it takes is the residents making kind of a stink about it and being on top of it. I mean, we've heard so many stories of these complexes having a recycling bin that's just like overflowing at all times of the day.
Mm-hmm.
It's not getting picked up, and then there's all the cross contamination happening. But at the end of the day, these complexes don't really care because they don't have the initiative really to care more than they have to.
Yeah, there's very little incentive to your point on that.
Which goes back to the problem of the tipping fee cost because that's
Well,
really
yes.
the root of it.
Yeah, and Sabira, that's what sparked this is the connection to EPR legislation. So for any extended producer responsibility legislation that's being passed in various states, there's a couple actually for us, I think that there's one that just got passed. for stadiums, I believe, in Illinois.
Yes.
Yeah. But this is the real world connection for those that wonder, well, how does EPR legislation work? Where does that money go? That money would go to EcoShip. That money, when it's being pooled, would go, oh, if there's some sort of agency for a company to say, oh, our money should go here, well, it's going to the solutions that are actually diverting the goods, those commodities, that packaging away from landfill. And so that's where this would be most supportive is if there was a pot of money that the state or city operated that went to solution providers like EcoShip.
Yeah, for sure. And that's something that we're going to continue being loud about and
Yeah.
push for it, because these community initiatives are very, very important. I don't think, for example, like there's that one company that claims to take the LDPE plastic and upcycle it, but how is just one company able to do that with all the states? It doesn't make sense. And we've seen that that does not work, and these community initiatives do work. And so I don't understand why we are fighting every single day to receive financial support and other support. It doesn't even have to be financial support. Just like help us get the resources that we need and help spread the word. It's as simple as that.
Hmm. I'm feeling really inspired and also fired up, I think, by
Yeah.
like the solution feels straightforward and simple. The problem feels really fiery and making my blood boil. So like what a great like moment of inspiration, I think, because even just spreading your word to other people nationally and internationally would mean that other people might have that feeling and do something. Like I know I'm frustrated with my residential recycling, but I'm like, they changed it and it got worse. So I'm like, what am I going to say that's going to make it better? But no, you're right. I should be making us think about it, because if I don't, who else will? And so I'm feeling jazzed. So I just want to say thank you for that as we start to round out the podcast. But curious, like, what can you paint us a picture of what you're hopeful about and what your vision is for the future?
Definitely. Something that we like to say is that we can't wait to go out of business. And that is because we are hopeful for a day where we don't have all this plastic packaging that we have to desperately find an outlet for. So for it to either be reused or properly recycled or upcycled.
Mhm.
And I mean, obviously I have mixed feelings about Amazon, but the fact that they are completely turning over into paper-based products is, is very exciting to me. We are seeing less of the plastic packaging from them, and so I am grateful for that we don't have to put up with it anymore. But, on the other hand, it's frustrating because they still haven't taken accountability for all the plastic that they have put out up till now. And so they're not doing anything about it. I mean, we still have 4,000 of their mailers in our unit. Like, that's not going away anytime soon. Um, and we were just at a recycling facility actually, like doing a tour, and the amount of those white and blue Amazon mailers that we were seeing, it was just ridiculous. Like amongst, like water bottles and aluminum cans, like
Yeah.
you can't just sweep that under the rug. You can't just be like, hey, well, all of our packaging is now paper-based, everything's fine. Yeah, but your labels still aren't. Your labels are still plastic. So we still have problems here, but we're seeing other companies too that are coming up with some really creative solutions. You have Eco Enclose. A lot of their packaging is recyclable material, and they are releasing like products that are actually fully recyclable too. They have labels that are fully recyclable, which is kind of which is what my partner uses, and then also what we've been using. And so we actually have these little labels, and so it says, hey, this package was reused this many times. And so every time it's reused, you can cross off the number. And so we're hoping that these labels, one of them has made it to Canada. So
Whoa,
so that was really
that's
exciting.
cool.
And so we're hoping that if people are seeing these labels in other states and other countries, that will also inspire them to do something similar to what
Love
we're
it.
doing. Because there's like a
I
little QR code leading to our website too.
I love the storytelling of that. I think that ultimately is probably what gives me hope, is just
Mhm.
It's
that ability for
spreading.
someone to willing to cross it out, use it, send it, have someone turn it back in, whatever it might be.
Yeah.
That's pretty incredible.
Yeah, my
Um,
partner actually just received a package. He ordered off of eBay and it had like four labels under like the top one. And so it's happening. You know, people
People
are
are doing it.
reusing
that's
for sure.
exciting. Okay,
Hmm.
that's very exciting. We'll need some of that media, maybe something we can use in here for we could, if you
And
guys
I'm
have pictures or
definitely
something.
looking
Yeah.
for your Canva go-to guide. I'm like,
Yes.
I
Ex-
actually, I mean, Alex, we're now getting into like personal land, but I work within the youth of our community to volunteer, and I would love to try something like this with them. So, like
Yeah.
a startup guide would be like the best way for us to just quickly get started without spending more of your time. But yeah, we'd love for you to come chat with our youth too and tell them the story of what's possible and how they could self-organize and do this. Be really
100%.
cool.
Yeah, that will be my next little project. I've been
there
looking
we
for
go.
something new.
I'm sure, yes, in all your free time. Yes. Alexandra, thank you. Thanks for joining us here today. And
This is
if
so
anybody
cool.
else wants to know anything more, where can they find you all?
Follow us on Instagram. Honestly, that's been our best and largest platform of reaching out to folks and kind of sharing the message. So you can find us on Instagram at EcoShip Official. You can also find us on Facebook if you want to be a part of like our little neighborhood group, Facebook or EcoShip Official as well, or our website, ecoship.org. You can find our list of accepted items there, upcoming events if you want to, you know, either stop by or volunteer and learn more.
And just to remind everybody in this, yes, this is Chicagoland for those that maybe want to be there in person, but there's a lot more here that you all can do if you want to reach out and try to do this in your own
Yeah.
neighborhoods, in your own cities. Thanks again for taking the time.
Yeah, thank you both. I appreciate it.